Hi there, welcome back to Synaptic, and today we're going to train you on how to import your third-party payment platforms. So the system, as we've shown you before, will be able to do manual invoicing, but to do that, especially when you've got a company like Debella or VAPS Consulting or even DFS, where they actually send you bordereaux, or there is a possibility of importing all of your bordereau information, we can obviously automate that process for you, which will save you a hell of a lot of time. So today we're going to show you how to import Debella, and this goes the same way for VAPS Consulting or DFS. So in order to do that, you need to ask us to give you the necessary permissions, and you will then see a button like this that I'm flashing on the screen at the moment pop up called Debella Main. Now, before we do anything with you here, the idea is that you have to be able to get hold of Debella. Debella is fully automated. So you need to get hold of Debella. We need to speak to Gareth or one of the agents at Debella, and we need them to give us a user code and your permission for us to connect to them under your company's name. So today we are using a specific company because we have got that connection, and there's no sandbox mode. So effectively, when you have set up your Synaptic and we've done the onboarding, we will just need you to give us permission to connect, and also which insurers you'll be connecting with that, because you'll have a certain connection string per insurer. So in this case today, we're going to do generic, and we are going to say we would like to import the information. There is a lot that you can do here. I'm not going to run through all of it because we don't really use most of this, because you can get this on the Debella platform directly, but you can literally pull down the invoice document, the invoicing details, or you can search for a specific invoice. Now, those first three items, don't really help us in any particular way. And as I said, you can search us on the Debella or VAPS Consulting side or DFS side if you need to. But what we're more interested in here is the bordereau data, because that's going to come through automatically into the system. You're going to receive your file every Wednesday evening, so that Thursday you can actually run your processing for Debella. And as I said, where this was a 3 or 4 day process, depending on the size of your book, you didn't have to go through each tab and literally manually invoice each and every individual specific policy. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do the bordereau data. Please make sure Debella is checked. If you are doing VAPS Consulting, I'll show you the opposite way as well, but Debella is fully automated. In here, you're going to put the bordereau number. So when you see your mail come through from Debella, it's going to have a file name with your code first, then the code of the insurer, and then at the end there is a 3-digit number, or it'll probably increase to 4 or 5 digits as time goes by, but there's a number that is at the end of the file name, and that is the number you're going to put in here. So we're going to type in 266, and now you need to choose your particular insurer. So in this case, this is generic insurance company. And now we say select or request the bordereau. After a few minutes of searching, you are going to see that your dealership information or your bordereau information is going to come up. So let me guide you through step by step what we are looking at here and how it's going to work. Now, first of all, if the information or the policy has not come through on one of the sales platforms, Signio, Ceriti, DealerNet, iPlatform, whichever one you're using, you will actually have access to the import button that I'm showing you on the screen at the moment. So that means we have not found an existing policy. Where we have found an existing policy, you're going to see it on the screen under the 5th tab, which is existing policy. And you're going to see it's bring through the bordereau number, the payment type. So this is now a payment, not an invoice. So in other words, this is fully processed and the money is now sitting in your premium collection account with that particular agency, in this case generic. You will see that we've got an existing policy number and there is an invoice number, but we do not have an existing invoice number. So this is a pending policy. Now, you have an option here to now change the date should you wish. However, the invoice date it draws through here will be the date of the invoice that has been done by Debella or by VAPS Consulting. If you want to batch this into one particular day, let's say you want to do it all on today, which is the 11th, and you want them all be the same, you're welcome to change it here. We don't suggest it because it just makes life difficult, and in a board row where you've maybe got 400 or 500 policies, that might be very time consuming. So we just leave it as it is. If there is an existing invoice, you have the option to overwrite the information or change information by selecting the date changes here. So let's say, for example, you had to manually capture a policy and invoice it, so there's a claim because there was a claim that came in, but the payments only come through now. You now have the option, if there was an existing invoice, to change the date and update the policy that you'll now import, as opposed to just leaving it as it was. But that's completely your choice. Effectively, this gives you all the information that you require: the date of first registration, how things are coming in, the product name, and all the information that you need to check to make sure that this is going to be the right policy. Now, we know at this stage that this information is correct. So it's going to say here, we've got two options. One, do we invoice it? So if I remove payment, then I do invoice, it will only invoice it. So let's say you have a segregation of duties between invoicing and payments. So in other words, you want one particular administrator to bring in the invoices, and then you need your accounting department to bring in the payments. You can now unselect the payments and just invoice as such. When you rerun this board again, it will then grey out invoicing because it's already been done, and it'll only allow you to pay. But in this case, we know that these are fully done. So what this system effectively does for both Debella, VAPS Consulting, DFS, or whichever platform you're using, is that it will literally import, invoice, and pay all in one file swoop while you're doing this. So it cuts out absolutely everything and removes any human error that can possibly happen. Once you are happy with all the information that is sitting in here, you have to now enter in the payment details. So these are very simple. This is completely up to you and however your company does this work. So in this case, we're just going to do this for this particular company. The payment type, are you getting it by cash, EFT, or whatever the case may be? Please note, if you are getting it by cash, you need to apply by the FIC rules and regulations. So there is an aggregate that you need to apply to every year, and you need to justify where the funds are coming from. Especially, I think it's a 49,000 max cap per year. So once you've selected all your payment details and you are happy that that's correct, you're going to say OK. And now you are actually ready to import the policies. Now, what I want to say here is that what you could do if you wanted to do a cross-check or wanted to keep separate records, you can export this to Excel, which will then dump this entire bunch into Excel for you, and you could do like a batch control system that can go into a filing cabinet or into a electronic filing cabinet, depending on how you work it, whether you're using SharePoint or a bunch of disks. So we are not going to do that for now. We're just going to go straight to import the information. It's going to confirm to you how many total lines you've got. It's going to tell you that you've got 2 to invoice, none to import, 2 to pay, and that you have already 2 existing policies. So that is right. That tracks with what we've done here today. And it asks you, do you want to continue the import? And we're going to say yes. It will say here that the policy will be mapped to the dealer using the stored Debella number first. So if your Debella codes are not set up correctly at your dealer space, where we showed you in the dealer setup video, then effectively we are going to have an error, or it's going to go into a mapping section that we'll have to do for you and change for you. This process might take a small while because it's not doing it line for line. So now you can see the import has been successfully done. It says OK. What happens now is in the bottom section of this, you actually get a log file. Now, we always suggest you take this log file, you save it, you can copy out of here. So Control C, right click, copy if you want, and you paste that into a little document that you can save as a log file. It's just good practice, and if anything goes wrong or the import doesn't happen for any good reason, then what you can do is you can send us that log file and say, but hang on, this is how it worked and this is what happened, this is the log I got, but we're not seeing policies, or whatever the case may be, and then we'll be able to trace from that log file exactly what happened. It's just good practice, it's not essential. So that is how to import Debella. Moving on with that, you can now say, fine, we're done. So now we're going to go back into Debella main. So now we're going to have a look at VAPS Consulting, slightly different because this is not an automated process and they don't have an API that we can connect to. We can now browse for the file, select what sheet the file's in, click process, and exactly the same process works. I don't have a particular file to show you today, but literally once you've imported the file that comes from the SPS system, you are then allowed to then upload it, select the sheet that you want, which is normally sheet 1, hit process. Once it's processed that file, it comes in exactly the same way the Debella file forms. You'll then select import, invoice or pay, and you'll run through exactly the same process as it goes along. Thank you for watching, and that's the automated imports for today. Have a good day.